we are ready to go. Okay, so this will be the first meeting in 8 months between these two. That doesn't seem like a long time, but obviously if you're Texas, you've got all the motivation, right? Ohio State ended your season, and Ohio State, of course, used that win to springboard a win over Notre Dame and win the championship. All eyes on Arch Manning, but maybe all eyes should be on Julian Sayin. It's hard to believe you could go from being an Alabama transfer to an Ohio State quarterback and not get a ton of attention in a game. That's how much Arch blocks out the sun. And this is how tight this is expected to be. 1.5-point dogs, but if you believe in the home field is worth 3 points, it shows you just how tight this game could be. This is Colin Simmons. He is a standout for Texas, providing the Buckeyes with a little bulletin board material. Then again, maybe it's not. Maybe he just actually feels this way. Check this out from social media. There it is. It's just a picture of Julian Sayin. What's this all about? Colin providing a little bit of clarity.
Honestly, I'm just excited that they chose a quarterback, It's really nothing major behind it, I'll say. It's no target for him or nothing like that. I'm just glad that they have a quarterback that I'm ready to sack.
That is absolutely phenomenal. Roddy, let's start with you. They famously called it the Pancake Factory. Texas's offensive line used to be their biggest concern. Then it got great. Now they're depleted. What does it mean for Saturday?
Zubin, I can't skip over what's happened so far in the show. The entry to the show, the open of the show, that's the best you've ever done in your life. Come here, bring it in, big guy. I'll give you a hug. Come on.
Give me a pound.
Look at you,
give me a pound.
The way Taylor looks at Travis. And then with the Colin Simmons thing, I think we're blowing that out of proportion. But none of that's here nor there. The Texas offensive line's replacing 4 starters. They're going up against an Ohio State defensive line that it's not the same group that it was a year ago, but it's still incredibly talented. So we all assume Arch is going to be great, but the quarterback is obviously incredibly dependent on the guys in front of him to keep him safe. Those Ohio State defensive linemen are going to be talented. And if you look at the guys that they lost, 3 selected in the NFL draft, and Jake Majors was a borderline All-American at center. So I am concerned, or at least want to see how this group that has guys that played last year but weren't starters comes together against a talented Ohio State front.
Yeah, Texas's offensive line may be a weakness, but Ohio State's defensive line is definitely not a strength. You talked about some of the players that Texas lost from the offensive line. Let's talk about some of the guys who Ohio State lost on their defensive line. Talk about guys like Jack Sawyer, who had that sack fumble to seal the game last year in the college football playoff when Texas played Ohio State. JT Tuimoloau, number 44. He's currently with the Indianapolis Colts. He's a dog. He was dominant in that game as well. And oh, by the way, Tyleik Williams on the interior was a first-round pick to the Detroit Lions. So you talk about strength on strength in certain matchups. This is almost like weakness on weakness. It's not the strong suit of Ohio State going against the strong suit of Texas. So I'm not overly concerned about the departures from Texas because Ohio State has lost some key departures and playmakers from that position as well.
The thing is, it's easier to throw a defensive line together in their first action when they all have stars next to their name. And Bo Atkinson was a really talented defensive end at North Carolina that transferred over. It's easier to throw that group together and say, hey, go play. I just need you to penetrate that gap, go right upfield, and hit somebody as hard as you can, especially when you got a guy like Sonny Styles behind. It's harder to have an offensive line that hasn't been in the environment like they're going to have in the horseshoe, that hasn't played, that hasn't had that 5C things as one, hasn't gone through that with an opposing defense on the other side. It's harder to have that group come together and perform at a high level early on, Sam.
But, Roddy, you're acting like there aren't stars next to the Texas offensive lineman's name as well. Steve Sarkisian has been one of the best recruiters over his tenure at Texas. Even at Alabama was great at recruiting. And to your point, yes, it's hard for 5 offensive linemen who are new to play as one. But Kyle Flood, who's the offensive coordinator and also the offensive line coach at Texas, is co-mastermind, if you will, with Steve Sarkisian. So if anyone's going to try and make sure the offensive line is protected, it's Kyle Flood, who's in the offensive position meeting rooms, as well as Steve Sarkisian.
Bulletin board material courtesy of Tommy Castellanos, who is Florida State's new quarterback. I'm sure you remember this when it came out, but let's just go through it. This was back in June to Pete Nakos of On3. I mean, this is the quote reporters dream of. Quote, I dreamed of moments like this. I dreamed of playing against Alabama. They don't have Nick Saban to save them. I just don't see them stopping me. Whether you like this or not, you have to respect the fact that at ACC Media Days, he didn't back away, he doubled down.
I stand on what I said. Well, we stand on what I said. So I said what I said. We stand on that. And I don't mean no disrespect to none of those guys at Alabama or anything like that. It's just I have confidence in my guys and the work that we've been putting in and preparing and the preparation we've been putting together. So that's all that was. I just, no disrespect to those guys, but we stand on what I said.
No disrespect, but you don't have Saban to save you. Roddy, I know you were at ACC Media Days. I know you had a conversation. You had a chance to sit down with this guy. Bottom line, what decides this game?
I think whether LT Overton and Tim Keenan make the bus may decide the game. I'm just kidding. I'm giving Florida State bulletin board material. Look, Tim Keenan's banged up. I do think that the Florida State offensive line has to contain the Alabama defensive line. That Alabama defensive line with Tim Keenan and LT Overton, it's two projected first-round picks on that group going up against an offensive line for Florida State that has 4 transfers coming in. They're all very experienced, but we know that transfer offensive lines generally don't work particularly well, not at a high level. And I'm not sure that we've seen one with this much experience, but that defensive line for Alabama is going to be one of the best in the country. The question is the health of Tim Keenan now. Chris Lowe recently tweeted out that Tim Keenan will be limited and could miss the game over the weekend, but will certainly at least be limited after sustaining an injury in practice. That's good news for Florida State because that's one of those projected first-rounders that may not be at full speed.
Yeah, I think the biggest point that stood out to me was that is bulletin board material. I talked to one of the Alabama star players, going to be a top round pick in the draft, right around after that comment was made, and he had some choice words that he didn't say publicly, but the fact of the matter is that means something for Alabama. For an Alabama player to hear someone say, you don't have Nick Saban to save you, they're definitely keeping receipts. Now, I will say this. You talk about the defensive line at Alabama. Florida State's replacing, they have 9 transfers, really 8 transfers and 1 true freshman starting on offense. And so if that D-line does slow down the running game with Gus Malzahn's new offense, then it's going to be up to the defensive backs. Guys like Zabian Brown and Damani Jackson, who were really good last season, but they're corners for Alabama, who, if this turns into a one-dimensional game, will need to be key playmakers to shut down or slow down, if you will, Thomas Castellanos. Yes, he's athletic, and yes, this offense led by Gus Malzahn this season should be a potent rushing offense, but if you can stop the run, you have to be able to take the ball away to give the ball back to your new starter in Ty Simpson if you're Alabama.
Including this yellow jacket saying Boulder, big deal, so what?
Everybody says it's a different experience, but I've experienced some crazy stadiums since being here. So just knowing that, not trying to overhype it, honestly, like it's another game. I know they bring out celebrities, they do all this crazy stuff, but we're playing football. Then none of them playing. They can hype you up all they want to, but you on the field, not them.
Interesting. Roddy, let's go to you here naturally since it's Tech in Colorado. What do you make of the fact that of all the things you could have talked about, he chose that as sort of as his main stump speech?
Well, you don't love it, but look, I don't think he said anything too inflammatory. It is an environment that is different, and they do have the celebrities on the sideline, whether it's The Rock or Lil Wayne or Big X the Plug or Rod Wave. Like the sidelines are a who's who, but ultimately you want it to be about the football. Now, I don't love the way that he brought it up. I don't love the fact that he went there. But I don't think there's anything too inflammatory there.
All right, let's take a look a little deeper inside Colorado. As you know, Deion was very clear when he first got there. There's going to be a lot of people coming in and a lot of people moving out, as the screen there indicates. But Deion also said, despite all the star power that's in the NFL now from last year's team, this year's team, better?
Some people get baffled because you think this guy's good, but he's playing against your guy that's bad, and then he ends up going against Goliath, and he's not David. So we understand what we have, and we're excited about that. We don't think we lost. We think we gained. Sure, there's a couple of athletes that were phenomenal, but I think and I've been saying this for quite some while, we have a better team.
Okay, Sam, minus the Heisman Trophy winner and one of the most productive quarterbacks in school history, which happens to be his son, they're somehow better? Are you buying this?
I am buying it. And the reason why is that you had two superstars on your team. And yes, you had some talented receivers as well. But as people start to see success, you start getting new transfers in. So that's part one. Part two, I think more important than anything is the coaching staff. They added Andre Gerard, who played a decade in the NFL for the Cowboys, was coaching the last probably 4 or 5 years plus, even more than. And he's one of the best offensive line coaches I've been around. One of the problems for this Colorado team was Shedeur Sanders getting sacked. Now all of a sudden you have one of the best offensive line coaches who's going to be able to keep your quarterback protected, and now you have an elevated roster. I think I'm buying what Coach Prime is selling.
Sam, they are not going to be better at the most important position, and they lost an All-American on offense and defense in the same player. There's no way they're better